Boy, that Aaron Rodgers, he's pretty good at football, huh? Incredible night for Aaron Rodgers in San Francisco. Absolute beatdown delivered by the Green Bay Packers. Now, I hope you bet on the Packers, as the vast majority of NFL gamblers did. But boy, that was a tough loss if you had the under like I did, and Kyle Shanahan was calling that final drive as if he were trying to tie the game, just putting his players in jeopardy, getting them wrecked as he drove down and scored with 4 seconds left to ensure that his team lost by 17 instead of losing by 24. But I think it's fair to say after that performance, the 49ers are done. They're finished. Their season, after a close loss in the Super Bowl, is going to probably end with a losing record, but certainly is over when you look at the quality of play in the NFC West. There's just no way to in any way justify them having a chance really in the NFC West. And so as you kind of break down that universe of the NFC West, I think the first team you can say is not going to be in the playoff mix is the 49ers. On the Packers side, after an atrocious performance last week against the Vikings, which left, I think, everyone kind of thinking to themselves, man, is this Packer team actually a legitimate threat or not? Are they a contender or a pretender? They bounced back. I know that the 49ers were without Jimmy G. They were without George Kittle. They had all sorts of injuries to speak of. But last year, the Packers got absolutely dominated twice by the 49ers. This year, they traveled out to San Francisco and dominated themselves. So NFL Week 9 is underway with a big win if you are a Packer fan in the NFC North, and you are projecting going forward, the Packers look to be in the mix to still contend not only for the NFC North, but potentially, depending on what happens above them with the Bucs, what happens with the Seattle Seahawks, maybe the Packers are still in position at the halfway point to end up with the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. So that is a breakdown of what happened in Thursday Night Football. We are looking towards an incredible weekend of college football and the NFL. In particular, college football has got 2 massive games. Florida, Georgia in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. The line down to Georgia, about a 3-point favorite. I told you yesterday, I think the wrong team is favored there. I expect Florida, behind a potent offense and Kyle Trask, to win this game outright and effectively take control of the SEC East. And then on the other side, the biggest game in the ACC in a very long time, Notre Dame playing in a conference for the first time, I believe, ever. And they have a chance to finally win a big game. Now, I took Notre Dame plus the 5.5 points. I keep making this mistake of believing that Notre Dame is going to actually be a really good contender. And Notre Dame has lost 11 straight and 19 of its last 20 against top 5 opponents, as well as each of its last 5 top 5 matchups. So Notre Dame, it's tough to do. 11 straight and 19 of its last 20 against top 5 opponents, as well as the last 5 against top 5 matchups. So is Notre Dame a pretender when it comes to being able to beat elite level teams, or are they a contender this year? If they beat Clemson, then Notre Dame won out. They'd finish 10-0 in the regular season. And then if they lost to Clemson in the ACC title game, would it really matter? They might be in as the 4th playoff team. And again, if you're thinking about the playoff universe, I'm assuming Alabama's going to be in. I'm assuming that Clemson is ultimately going to be in when Trevor Lawrence comes back. And I'm also assuming there's a very good chance of Ohio State being in. But the other question is, who's the 4th team to get in the college football playoff based on the way the schedule is likely to break? Yes, it could be the Florida or Georgia winner if that team then goes on to win out and upsets Alabama. It could be Texas A&M. if the Aggies could run the table and finish 9-1, only loss being to Alabama. It could be a Pac-12 team, and I'm going to get to the Pac-12 in a minute, which starts play tomorrow. It could be, if you think about it, it could be a team like Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma State would have to win out the rest of the way, and based on what happened against Texas, I don't feel like that is very likely. Or it could be Notre Dame. So there aren't that many teams in line for that fourth playoff spot. I don't think there's anybody else in the running in the ACC. I don't think other than Notre Dame. I don't think there's anybody really in running in the Big Ten other than Ohio State to potentially be a playoff team, especially because Wisconsin may not even finish the season, and they're the other team that you look at their schedule and you think, okay, they could go undefeated and potentially pull off the upset in the Big Ten championship game. In the SEC, we're down to the winner of Florida, Georgia, or Texas A&M alongside of Alabama as playoff contenders. And in the Big 12, really, I don't think anybody's really a contender, but the only one that could make a run and finish with only one loss and go 10-1 is Oklahoma State. So anyway, that is your big college football playoff picture. Now, I mentioned that the Pac-12 is returning to play. Not everybody in the Pac-12. I feel bad for players on Cal or Washington because they canceled the game. I can't believe this is real. They canceled the Cal-Washington game because Cal has one asymptomatic positive COVID test. One player is asymptomatic and tested positive for COVID. And as a result, because of the ridiculous and absurd COVID standards under play in Berkeley, not only is Cal forced to cancel this week against Washington, there is a chance they're going to have to cancel next week as well. When you're only playing 7 games, effectively Cal's season is almost over. And it screws the team that they're supposed to play against, which isn't scheduled to play very many games either. So this is just such a insanely dumb regulation about COVID in Berkeley that is causing the Pac-12, which already is starting so late relative to everybody else, to end up in this situation. So that is the universe of sports stories that we are going to be chasing and breaking down as we move through the show, giving you a roadmap of where we're headed. I'll bring in the crew here in a minute, but we have got a pretty loaded show, including Dub at the Breeders' Cup. He's up in Lexington, Kentucky, at the Breeders' Cup racetrack, I believe, in Keeneland. If you've ever been to Lexington, fabulous place there. The crew is out in L.A. I am, as always, in Nashville. Let me go ahead and bring everybody in. Danny G, you're in L.A. The Pac-12 is supposed to start this weekend, and now Cal and Washington is canceled for one positive test.
Yep.
How insane is that?
Welcome to our lives of lockdown here in California. I have one Cal friend, Todd, who listens to us in the Bay Area. He's a mechanic up there. He was losing his mind over this news.
Is he a big Cal fan?
Yeah, big Cal fan, and his weekend is ruined now, like a lot of fans and players. I feel bad for players of Cal and Washington.
I mean, one asymptomatic test. One. It's mindless. Dub, how is the Breeders' Cup? How are things going in Lexington? And what do you think about this insanity of Cal Washington canceled for one positive asymptomatic test?
Well, things are going much better here than they are for the Cal Golden Bears. This is pretty cool. I got this whole place to myself.
Are you literally the only person at Keeneland right now?
One of the few. I'm sitting right next to the ticket window here. It's got my juices flowing a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But
what time do the races actually start today?
I think they start sometime this afternoon, early afternoon. The first set of races will be on Friday today, and then obviously the big one will be tomorrow afternoon. But the Cal story, what are the odds that they're even going to play one game if this is the protocol?
I think this is low.
Yeah,
right. If you're a fan of California-based teams, I think you have to be terrified, whether you're USC, whether you're Cal, whether you're Stanford, that in some way, UCLA, they're going to find ways to keep you guys from being able to play this year. even if it is finding as few as one positive test on a team. I mean, it's just absolute insanity.
Yeah, I agree. I think the chances of them having even 4 or 5 games are incredibly low at this point if this is how it's going to go down every time.
I don't think there's any doubt at all. Eddie, I mean, you're a big college football fan, Fresno State fan. This is absolute insanity, isn't it?
It is surprising, and not only is Cal Washington canceled, but Air Force and Army has also postponed their game. They hope to make it up, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen. And all the stories I'm reading is that I haven't seen any article that says that there was an actual football player that tested positive for the Air Force Academy. It was cases on the campus, and they've canceled the football game. Unless I'm not seeing the information, I've not seen any article that has said an actual football player tested positive. So they've postponed that game.
Yeah, I don't understand how the decisions that are being made can be justified by anybody with a functional brain, right? It just seems totally irrational to me to be set up in this way, where everybody, all these kids have been working for months to try to get themselves back into shape and into a situation where they can play. And then you're just going to show up and yank the rug out from underneath them. I mean, imagine how awful that one player who tested positive feels. It's not like he did anything wrong, and he's asymptomatic. I mean, we're into November now, and we have had, across the entirety of college campuses, hundreds of thousands of college kids test positive. There's like 5 that have been hospitalized. I mean, it is, you are more likely to die of alcohol poisoning this year by far than you are to have any major issues from COVID. And yet they're still canceling games. I can't even imagine how frustrating it is for Justin Wilcox, for everybody that is affiliated with the Cal program. And then think about Washington. They really haven't done, they don't even have a single player that's tested positive, and there's no record of transmission ever during a game. So the one player, okay, let's say he sits out, they've tested everybody else on the teams, nobody's positive right now. Washington's willing to travel and play, and they're not allowed to do so. It just makes no sense. Roberto, is this, I mean, the Pac-12 waits until well into November to play. They're only playing 7 games, and they immediately cancel one of those games for 2 programs over a single positive test.
Yeah, let's just face it, right? Like, the Pac-12 shouldn't have came. If they're really intent on sticking to their guns, they should have never came back to play football, right? They just came back because everybody else came back, and they didn't want to look like duds. But, yeah, to cancel the game for one test is stupid.
Yeah, it's just absolutely nonsensical. All right, that is everything. We're going to continue to break down NFL Week 9 and everything going on in the college football universe as we move forward. Again, I'm mentioning Dub is at the Breeders. The other moment that we should mention is that the NBA, I believe this is official. Eddie, you're doing all the updates. The NBA is officially returning on December 22nd to play a 72-game season.
Yes, that's correct.
So that entire offseason is going to be like 3 weeks, and then they're going to be right back into training camp. If you are a team that advanced very far in the NBA Finals, Eastern or Western Conference, you get basically no time off, and that is a function of the desperation of the NBA to avoid having to basically have their revenue just disappear. The television networks are saying you have to give us at least 72 games of the 82-game schedule. You thought load management was an issue before. I would think that many of the top players are going to sit out 20 or 30 games of this season and not play. I mean, it is just going to be a tiny, tiny percentage of overall players that are going to be playing full seasons at all.